struggling to come to grips with reality. Confusion and chaos have become part of me. I seek answers to know where my liberation lies. Only in peace and calmness does that clarity arise. Transmissions of wisdom bring me insights of reason. Let my mind expand to the higher states. My mortality is no longer at stake. Let me hear the wisdom transmissions. The wisdom transmissions. So many voices, so many interpretations. No answers given, only outer temptations. Where can I find that truth inside of me? Realization of what I am is all I'm wanting to see. Transmissions of wisdom bring me insights of reason. Let my mind expand to the higher states. My mortality is no longer at stake. Let me hear the wisdom transmissions. The wisdom transmissions. No more redirection, ending the contemplation. Forget fighting reflection, outer worlds of projection. Internal is the cause, external's an effect, put it on pause. I'm silencing the noise, centering, entering void. Truth is beautifully subtle, the voice without a voice. Heart and mind shall settle, making decisions now, escaping illusions of choice. Transmissions of wisdom bring me insights of reason. Let my mind expand to the higher states. My mortality is no longer at stake. Let me hear the wisdom transmission. The wisdom transmissions.
And good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Wisdom Nexus. Good to be with all of you here today. So, today I'm going to be bringing in Athena, and it's been a while since I brought her through. Normally what I would do with the empathic interfacing is when we get started, I get you guys to kind of join me with her by going through the certain steps. I'm not actually going to do that today. But if you want to know how that's done, just look into previous webcasts where I've done empathic interfacing live. It's pretty easy. Just go onto YouTube, type in empathic interfacing, or you could even just do something simpler. Just type in Athena Brad Johnson, right? And you can find some of the past videos, and in all of those past videos, those past webcasts, I've been able to teach people how to connect with Athena. But I kind of want to get more into it, just right into it today. So I'm going to be skipping that. But those are available if you want to find out how to connect with Athena yourself, because you can. She's a very open channel, so she is happy to connect with others. I've had others who have contacted me who said that they've had direct contact with Athena or some of her people as well too, so that's wonderful. So it's going to be really exciting today. We're going to go and see exactly how things are going with her and her civilization. If you are not familiar with Athena, Athena is a member of a inner Earth civilization that exists underneath Delphi, Greece. So I refer to them as the Delphi. You can also call them the Delphi if you want, but I've called them that since the very beginning. And again, I started with them back in 2017, and I connected actually with Athena's brother. And they don't really have names in that way. They just kind of give themselves nicknames or designations. But he referred to himself as Nefertitus, right? And he really just didn't want to do the empathic interfacing with me. He kind of felt like he was obligated to answer. I don't know, I guess he was probably being told by others to say, you will talk to him, talk to him, talk to him. Right? He was kind of grumpy in that way. And then basically he just kind of said he didn't want to do it anymore, and he passed it on to his sister, his younger sister. And that's when Athena came into the picture. But yeah, it was back in 2017. And like I said, all I had was just a copper frame pyramid in my front room, and I would just go in and I would just start meditating. And I just put a very strong intention out that I wanted to connect with something other than Adronis, right? And then if there was any loving, beneficial, connected beings that wanted to share themselves with me, then of course the Delphi came through. So like again, we're going to be looking into some updates with them today and seeing how things are going, and then we'll probably talk to them about some human situations that they can probably comment on as well too, or basically Athena can comment on. Now Athena is basically the complete opposite of her brother. She's very sweet, she's very loving, she's very compassionate, but she also has that directness, kind of like Adronis does at the same time. But she's a very, very sweet soul. So looking forward to bringing her in again today. And like I said, it is basically empathic interfacing. So it's not really channeling that way. When you channel, you're basically being one with that particular being. Like how I am with Adronis. He's not outside, he's inside. But when we look with Athena, it's an empathic relay. It's an empathic interfacing. So basically, I'm not forming in oneness with her. It's just basically a cross communication. It's kind of like mediumship. You're basically just connecting with the being, and you're just relaying information, interfacing with information that they are sharing, and then I do my best to translate that as it comes through. And again, others have connected with her, and they can feel it's a very similar situation as well too. So it's not channeling. It is very much empathic interfacing or empathic relaying. So it's going to be very exciting. But before we get started today, hopefully my microphone is better for everybody. I cranked it right to the highest level as it can. So hopefully you guys can hear me okay. It shows here in the bar that it's doing pretty well. If there are any microphone difficulties or volume difficulties, please just let me know in the chat. I am keeping my eye on the chat, right? So if anything like that happens, just let me know, and we can work on that. Okay, so we're going to start off firstly with just some announcements, and then we're going to get right into empathic interfacing. Afterwards, we can take some personal readings, or again, we can take some general readings as well too. All right, and if it is personal readings, it is by donation, so that's just a reminder. And let's go ahead and get started with announcements. Okay, so wisdomtransmissions.com. We have the brand new session here, which is the elimination of physical ailments and karmic patterns permanently. This is the personal transcendence package. This has been a very rewarding experience for me. Basically bringing about this entirely brand new service has really helped me to see a lot more of the innerness of people's souls. It's wonderful, and I can feel that the power is really coming through when the personal transcendence package is being worked on with another person. Again, what I just refer to it as working with the Kundalini force. Yeah, that's really what's going on here, is that I look into your physical ailments, I look into what emotional situations you're going through, traumatic situations you're going through, and we also go all the way up into the cosmic plane, right into the karmic realms, and we actually help to soften and dissolve a lot of your karmic patterns altogether. To my knowledge, there is nobody else on the internet that is doing something like this. This is the very first service of its kind. So again, you can check that out, Personal Transcendence Package. Just click on the Learn More and Order Now button. You can also find it here up on Services under Personal Transcendence Package. Okay, so that's the brand new package. And again, like I said, everybody is welcome. I pretty much have about 25 people right now, which is great. That's quite a bit of work. But like I said, I'm happy to basically hold up to about 100 people. So we still have lots of room for people that want to join. And like I said, it is a subscription-based service. So if you want to have more work done on you with consistent months, then we basically just keep going deeper and deeper and deeper until you're cleared of everything, right? And you start remineralizing yourself. You start bringing in the alkaline reinforcement with yourself as well too at the same time. And we work with physical ailments. We work with emotional ailments. We work with traumatic ailments. We dissolve all of those, and then we go right into your karma, and we work to dissolve that as well too. So again, you can check that out, wisdomtransmissions.com. And with Etherics, I still haven't got the new service up yet. I'm working on it. I just have had no time. I've just been extremely busy with all of these sessions that are coming about, which are wonderful. And of course, building some other things as well. But again, I'm working to get the third service out, which will be the furniture and room imbuing service, which will be coming very soon. But in the meantime, we have the item imbuing service and the full body scan. Plus, again, we have all of our products that are available right now. Like I said, I know there's some people that are having a difficult time with some of the tariffs. And this is why we have services available now on Etherics, whereas you don't want to pay that 25% or 35% tariff if you're in the States, because Etherics is Canadian, of course. Then this is why we have the services where we can imbue an object of your choosing that you already own and give it that Etherics programming, that Etherics technology directly into it. So it works very, very well. It's quite quick as well too. So you can check that out on etherics.co. We also have 15% off products right now. And finally, we have the Indiegogo campaign here. We are almost funded. We are almost completely funded. We're $95 away from being completely funded. Now, again, we'll keep the 5 days on. If there's some extra money that comes in, that's great, because I do want people to have an opportunity where they can get a lifetime subscription for Radiate Amrita when it comes out. So again, we're seeing quite a few of the master levels here being claimed, even a few of the apprentice. So I'm going to keep that around. It'll still remain for the 5 days, but we are pretty much there, right? So I want to thank every single contributor who has tuned into this Indiegogo campaign and has contributed. It means so much. And we're really going to bring Radiate into the next level. Like I said, I also had what's known as Radiate Regen. That was something, and you guys have seen in past videos of me in my old house. I'm in a brand new house right now, have been for about a year. And I can't run Radiate here. It's not against what the owner wants. So, but in the old house, I was able to run a Radiate studio downstairs, and I'd have people coming in and they would just lay down, or I would say lay down in their zero gravity chairs, and I would just put on the Radiate, and they would have incredible experiences afterwards. I would have people who would be able to heal their feet. I would have people who would be able to heal their ribs. I would have people who would be able to heal their backs. I'd have people who would walk out of the room completely rejuvenated, refreshed, and replenished. So we're going to have that as well too with the new Radiate Amrita. We're going to take the Radiate Regen technology and put it to the next level. So this is where it's going to be coming very soon, but probably about 6 months after Radiate Amrita is launched, we're going to have the new Regen capability for healing centers, for businesses, for wellness centers, and so forth. And you can basically use it for a single screen, and you can use it for multiple screens. So again, the old Radiate Regen needed multiple screens. With the new one, you can run it with just a single screen. What you're also going to be able to do too is you're going to learn to reprogram it so you could have the visual bars here that you see, as well as other screens that can correlate together with that by holding organs, like holding organ diagrams onto the other screens, so that we're actually getting concentrators going into the organs while you're looking at the main rejuvenation screen. So you have one screen that's doing the rejuvenation screen. You have another screen that's doing the liver. You have another screen that's doing the spleen. You have another screen that's doing the nervous system. That is really going to be the new type of Radiate Regen. It's going to be far superior to what we've used before. So that's going to be coming very soon together with the Radiate app. So again, I'm going to be starting to build Radiate Amrita about mid-October here, and we're looking for a January release if all goes well, and I think it will. And then after January, I'm probably thinking maybe about 6 months afterwards, we'll start releasing the Radiate Amrita Regen technology, which will be available for health centers, wellness centers, healing centers, and so forth. any particular establishments that want to utilize that in their own business establishment. So that's going to be really exciting as well too. But again, thank you very much. No doubt there that there's a synchronicity of 33 backers. That's awesome. Got the master number there, so very good. Thank you to everybody. And again, we still have some time for those of you who still want to contribute. So again, thank you so much for that. All right, let's go ahead now and get started with today's broadcast, where I'm going to be bringing in Athena. Like I said, I'm just going to be skipping the whole how to connect with her routine today. Like I said, if you do want to do that, if you're just tuning in and you know, okay, Brad's doing the work with Athena again, and I want to know how to connect with her, just type in Athena, Brad Johnson, in the YouTube search bar on youtube.com, and you can find some of my other videos with her. And again, I go over it in that way. But I'm not going to do that today because I do want to get right into the conversation with her today. And I just want to make sure my microphone is good. Okay, great. Microphone is okay. Great. Glad to hear it. Thank you, everybody. All right, I will go ahead and take a moment and bring in Athena, and we'll get started. Okay, so she is with me right now. So we're going to go ahead and connect with Athena and just go over some questions with her. And I'll do my best to interpret exactly how she is, what she is replying and how she is responding. Okay, so just connecting with Athena right now. Again, I just welcomed her in my light, welcomed her in my love, welcomed her in that state of presence. And she is standing there as well too. So I've really tested her so many times. I don't really need to keep testing her anymore. Like, I don't even test Adronis that much. I really just tested him a few times. And after that, there's just that mutual trust that comes together. But she is here. So I'm just going to ask Athena right now about, it's been a while since her and I have conversed. And we're just seeing if there's any updates that she wants to share. She says there's some very sensitive transformations taking place within the internal crust of the Earth. And there's actually a lot of scientists even in their inner realm, so to speak, that are investigating these. They're kind of like pillars of light that are actually coming in through the Earth, and they're staying around, right? It's kind of like you're just looking at this, if you were like in your front room, and you saw this gigantic pillar of light, and it's so bright and it's so radiant that you can actually touch it, and it actually gives you that powerful sensation. There's powerful streams or pillars of light that are coming into the inner Earth that are basically remaining there, which is indicating that the Earth is going through a major state of charge, right? So when you actually look at certain areas internally through the Earth, there's these beams, there's these pillars of light that are actually coming in and just remaining there, right? And it's almost like they're pillar foundations of light. They're luminous, and it's because the Earth is absorbing a lot of this cosmic energy that's coming through that these pillars are actually remaining. It's kind of like if you were underground and you had like these small openings to the surface, and the sun is just pouring through, and then you see these gigantic pillars of light, of sunlight, that is coming through. Although these are not just representing sunlight, they would basically have like a rainbow color effect to them. So the Earth is almost moving, you could say she's saying it's almost kind of like a kundalini in that way, is that the Earth's kundalini is now starting to rise. And we're seeing these pillars of light. And I'm saying, like, how big would they be? And she would say quite massive. Some of them could be well over a span of about 30, 40 feet in width. Very large, right? I would ask if there's any in the Delphi. She says, yes, there are. There are pillars of light. They're just standing vertically here, right? They're vertical, and they're not coming in at an angle, but they are completely vertical, and they are staying here. And they have not moved. They have not, I guess you'd say, fade away. They have not faded away in that way at all. So I would just ask in that sense, what is this representing? As you said, it represents the idea of a major amount of charge, But again, you're saying that we're seeing a lot of these enormous pillars of light that are remaining inside the inner earth. And she says, yes, it's almost like a two-sided way, a two-way transmission, right? There's energy that's coming in through the earth, and then there's energy coming out through the earth. And then there's just these powerful pillars of light that are showing themselves in many different internal areas of the inner planes. And I would ask if there's something like that that's going to happen with us. She said, not really, because the surface has a very different type of instrumentation relating to how it perceives light. But where we are, because the density here is a little bit more lighter, we're able to perceive these pillars of light a little bit more thoroughly. She says, if you're able to shift yourself much more into a lighter vibrational frequency, you may start to see these pillars of light. But the surface operates on a different density and has a different way of perceiving light. But if we're actually here in the inner planes to where they exist, because they would be very much closer to like a fourth density aspect, that they're actually seeing these gigantic pillars of light. And I would say, well, can you stand in them? Is there like a healing? She says, yes, you can actually stand in these pillars of light, and they're very rejuvenating, right? There's nothing toxic that's coming out of it. This is actually the result of purification. So there's a purification coming together. If it was not pure, we would not be seeing it as light. We would see it as some other particular type of substance that could represent toxicity. She says, but it's not really that state of a toxicity. It's a purity to it, right? Even when you put your hand in it, there's a warmth feeling. It's almost like feeling as if you were to rub your hands very thoroughly for a couple of minutes straight, and you feel that buzzing sensation. That's how it would feel if you put your hands in these pillars of light. So that's beautiful. So I would ask, how long has this been happening with her? She says it has been happening for the past several months, right? But it has increased a great deal more. So again, it started off very, very faint, and now it's starting to broaden itself. It's starting to become a lot more wider. It's starting to become a lot more apparent. And it's in many of the planes of the inner earth that are coming through. And so I would say to her that, again, if we're looking at the idea of Kundalini with the earth, like it's a Kundalini type effect, what is going to happen with the surface of the earth? She says you're already experiencing it right now. You're already experiencing people who have not trained themselves, people who have not gone into that deep state of love will be frantic, right? They will be manic in that way. If you don't learn how to work with yourself in here, you are going to be a victim of everything that happens externally, right? So that's basically what she's telling me. She says, if you do not work on yourself, if you don't feel the love in here, if you don't connect with in here, then you're going to follow madness. Madness is going to be a part of the surface. Because all of this intense energy is coming in, this new consciousness is moving in. The earth is, she's saying this very, very strong. The earth is about to give birth. She's about to give birth. She's right there, right? And I say, well, what would that mean if the earth is giving birth? She says, well, it's a new consciousness. This new consciousness is going to come in. Everything that you feel, you think you know about life is going to change everything, right? Everything about corruption on your world is going to change significantly, right? Your world representing the surface. The corrupt aren't going to be here anymore. They can't be here when this new consciousness is born. They're going to be gone. They have to leave, right? So I would say to that, well, how would that work? Because even though I've talked about that, I would say, well, to Athena, well, how would that work? If we're looking at people who are very corrupt, who are very sinister, who basically have ill intentions with people, and they're manipulative and they're greedy, how would they basically disappear? She says they just simply won't be here. Like they will leave. They're going to be gone. Is it just like one moment we see them, the next moment we don't? She says yes. They're going to be completely gone. They're not going to be here. So where do they go? Do they go to some other particular type of dimension? Are they in another universe? You would say, to be more appropriate to say almost like another universe, where it's a culling that's taking place right now. She says, Brad, you called this repopulation. And she says, that's a very accurate term, because that's exactly what's happening. Those beings will not be here anymore. They simply will not be able to interact with this plane. And I would say, does this have to do with 2038? She says, yes. Right, with 2038. basically you'll see all this corruption, you'll see all of this happening, right? Again, it gets more intense and more intense and more violent and more vicious and a lot more heat, a lot of more emotional heat on the planet. But then you'll see it, it's like, here it is, and then it's gone. And it's vanished. You don't know what's happened, right? And I said, well, wouldn't that affect the continuity of things? She said, not really. Because again, it feels like as if something was happening and then something basically just played itself out. It will play itself out with seamless transition. But it's like the idea that you're basically moving into an entirely new universe, right? You're shifting out of this. So again, I'm kind of using the idea of the hyperboloid here, or the hourglass, where we're seeing again that nature of 2038, where we have that notch in the middle of the hourglass in 2038, and then we have this condensing coming together. But from Athena's perspective, is like they will be here and then they will be gone. They would basically be perceived as people who have died. They would be perceived as people who have passed away. That's going to be the transition of it. But basically, the change, the flash, is going to be so intense and so quick that nobody will really know what's actually happened. It will play itself out through the seamless transition of moving into this new birthing consciousness with the Earth. She's about to give birth. And then when the consciousness starts to emerge, there's a quickening that takes place. Everybody starts to wake up by leaps and bounds. A lot of people, even if they're stuck in darkness, they still start to realize what they have been playing with that is wrong. And basically the essence of their rightness is trying to come through. So this is what Athena is trying to tell me here about this. She says, so these pillars of light represent kind of like the prelude to the birthing of a new consciousness. So that is what's going to be happening. So she's talking about 2038 at the same time as I am. So this is it. I mean, again, guys, I don't have a lot of information of what exactly is going to happen in 2038. What I've also been told, too, is that a lot of people are not going to be aware of what's actually happening. They won't even think that something has actually happened. Because there's going to be a great deal of confusion around that time, even when 2038 comes around. And again, I don't know when in 2038, but within 2038, that's the boundary, right? And what's happening is during that time, everything just starts to accelerate. It's like we're trying to cram a whole gigantic landfill through a small lens, right? And it's all this stuff that's trying to cram together all at once. Time feels like it's just majorly accelerating, and in a way, it basically is. It is a time acceleration because it's actually pressure against the time dimension, right? If we're looking at a space and time dimension, which I know isn't always quite accurate, but we're basically looking at the thresholds, the fabrics of it. And it's like this great force is pushing against it. And as we have that incredible pushing, that pressure that's taking place, this is what's going to collide with the idea of what we know as continuity, with what we know as time. Everything just goes so friggin' fast. And I said that this begins in 2012. This has begun since 2012 and is going to culminate in 2038. And then from 2038 to 2064, this will represent the renormalization of time, right? So there's a quickening that happens, 2012, 2038, 2038, 2064, okay? And after 2064, everything would quote-unquote renormalize itself so that time does not feel that it reaccelerates again. So it's again like you're going through one funnel of the hourglass. You hit that notch right in the center where the hourglass is, and then you come out the other end. But you don't experience the notch. You don't experience the null point because there's no matter there. There's no life there, right? I mean, there is, but it's not something that you can recognize through the nature of the mind. It's instantaneous. So like I've said, a lot of people are not going to know that even anything happens in 2038. It's going to be such a seamless transition. And this kind of feels like what Athena is saying right now. So I would just like to get her perspective on 2038. Said I've done my best to try and give a perspective. I don't know if I've done a very good job, but I'm just doing it in regards to what I can describe. So Athena, do you feel like you're seeing the same thing? That we look at an hourglass, for example, and then we see the null point in the center, and then we see that flow. She says that is a perfect example of what's going on. She says like you've captured it beautifully. So you've done a good job. Don't be hard on yourself. So But I would just say what her perspective is. She says, well, that's basically it. She says, right now it's a transitional time. It's like as you start to go through the tunnel, the light starts to get brighter. And the light starts to get brighter the more that you start moving towards it. The light, therefore, starts to overcome you, right? It starts to consume you momentarily. And then at the other side, you realize that you're still in the light, but you're walking forward and you see the matter of life coming together again, right? So the more that you're walking towards the light, it starts to brighten. It starts to encompass you. And then as you become encompassed, you go through the other end, but you don't know that you came through another end. It's so seamless. It's so transformative. So from what Athena is saying is that everybody that is corrupt, everybody who is after greed is not going to be here post 2038. She says that is correct. Post 2038, they will be gone. And they will be in another universe that they will not be able to interact with this. And we're not really talking about people on a physical level. We're really talking about the nature of the soul itself, right? Those particular entities, as you would say, simply could not interact with this universe. Because everything that represents the darkness of this universe is going to transition. You're seeing the idea, and I've made this analogy as well too, the bottom rung of a ladder pertaining to a dimension where you would have a lot of horror, you would have a lot of violence, you would have a lot of chaos, all of those darker realms. That rung is basically being welded off the ladder. It's being cut off the ladder if we're looking at the great ladder of how the structure of life itself is. That rung is being removed. And then there's a new rung coming up at the top of the ladder. So you're not going to have those hell dimensions anymore. Those hell dimensions are going to go. So basically, people won't be able to go into those particular types of dimensions. Not through this new universe that you're going into. No. There will be certain parameters that represent those realms, but they will represent more of a higher boost, a higher frequency. It's like you're not going directly into midnight anymore. You're going much more into the point just before the crack of dawn. So those particular realms are basically being removed from this universe, and there's going to be a recycling, right? She says over time there may start to be another realm, another rung that may go beneath the ladder, but it's almost like a fresh start. It's like a cleaning, right? So again, at some particular point, that rung will regenerate itself. But everything pertaining to the corruption that has happened in this universe is going to shift fundamentally. This is what's called the event. Okay? This is the event. The event is nothing else. It has nothing to do with a planetary event or your star. This is a universal event. Everything in the universe is going to be affected by the event. Okay? So that's the event. So yes, the sun will do its part, the planets will do its part, galaxy will do its part, all of the other corresponding galaxies will do their part, but the event is a universal phenomenon. It is the shifting out of one particular universe together with another. So there we go. So I'm glad someone else is also kind of corroborating with me with 2038. No human, really, in the physical, but Athena certainly is saying that. Of course, as Jonas has said this as well, too. So I kind of just like to get Athena's take on this, but in a way, it still kind of feels confusing even to me, because, like I said, we see all of this intensity on the planet. She says, you don't have to worry about that. That's going to collapse way before that time comes, right? A lot of that is going to basically fall on its head. That's not even going to really be a part of a factor when you start moving closer to 2038. A lot of the corruption that you're seeing right now here in 2025 is going to cease, specifically as you go into the new decade, right? This last few years of this decade needs to play it out, but as you start getting into the early 2030s, you're not going to see a world like that at all anymore, right? It's going to be very much phased out. And that's leading into the greater encompassing of the light that is going to shift everything. And it's kind of like you're just looking at yourself from this perspective, and then all of a sudden it flips. And now you're moving through the other side. And as you say, 2038 to 2064, she says that's an appropriation. She says that that could still represent a proximity, but it's still appropriate about the idea of a quickening of time that starts to move itself back into normalization between 2038 and 2064. So there you go. To my knowledge, I am the only person on the internet that is talking about this, right? There's another person by the name of John Van Elken. He talked about the nature of 2038, and it was just when I started talking about it, 2037, 2038, that I had one of my subscribers email me and say, hey, check out John Van Elken, because he also talks about 2038, but he has no idea what happens in 2038. He says, we look at the Edgar Cayce material and we look at the Egyptian timeline, and we see how everything ends in 2038, right? He says that is basically the true 2012, is that time basically ends in 2038. So he says that there is supposed to be a very big event that is to take place in 2038, but he has no idea what it is. And so I'm doing my best to get this insight. And even still, I don't even really know what it is either. What's happening with 2038, other than what we have described, right? It relapses the brain a little bit, trying to figure out exactly, okay, how do these corrupt ones that are just suddenly here vanish, just gone, right? And it's kind of like you'll see it when it happens, right? It'll make a little bit more sense there. But the best thing to say, and this is what Athena is saying, is they're not a vibratory match to this dimension anymore. They're not a vibratory match to this earth. They're not a vibratory match with the birthing of a new consciousness. That consciousness represents such a higher epitome that supports innocence that their grasp can't hold on. They have to go. They have to go somewhere else. So it is a shifting that's taking place. And I would say, well, a lot of people talk about this idea of third density to fourth density shifting and working into a shift. She said it's a shift, but it's a shift that's still going to keep you where you are, right? You're still going to be where you are, but it's a shifting that's moving you into this new universe, right? So she says it's just some people get confused. They think that you're going to turn into light beings and so forth. She says that's not true. That's not what's happening. She says you're still going to be you. You're still going to operate in this body for as long as you have it. But it's going to be a shifting taking place on a universal level. It's not just on the earth. It's not just through the sun. It's not just through the star system. It is through the entire universe. This whole shift is taking place, right? And so I would go back to the pillars of light that she's talking about. And she says, yes, this is the prelude to something greater, right? In time, we may start to see a lot more of these pillars coming together. And it will be very, very luminous to where we exist. But she also says is we operate on a different spectrum. And on that spectrum, we're able to perceive these particular rays of light, these pillars of light, so to speak. Unless many of you start to shift yourself and actually see the perspectives of these pillars of light, you would probably be able to see them on your surface as well too. Just large pillars of light. So the whole earth right now is being engulfed by light, being engulfed by these light pillars. And she says this is a preparation stage. This is almost like a bearing down. And it's not going to be very much longer before we see the corrupt leave the earth completely. They don't belong here. This is not their home. This never was their home. This is an invasion. This is like parasites entering the body, thinking that they own the body. The parasites have to be removed because a lot of these dear people, and she says a lot of these dear people have been taken over by these parasites. These parasites aren't even native to this dimension. They were injected here, right? A lot of the parasitical, you could say almost demonic beings that are a part of this realm aren't even in the same universe as you. They're basically from other dimensions. They don't belong here. This is a parasitical injection. They have been injected here. And it's no more different than killing off parasites in the body. There will be a point where if you're taking a really good supplement, for example, or a very good antidote, those parasites now start to diminish. They fade away. There's no more signs of them. And she says that's the exact same thing that's happening with the earth. This is kind of her analogy, right? You have parasitical infections in the body, but you take an antidote that's killing away those parasites almost instantaneously. That's what's happening to them. They will be here, and then they will be gone. They cannot survive the light that is to come. They just simply can't. They don't exist in that realm. It's like us basically trying to say, okay, right now in your physical body, go up and see the angels right now. You couldn't do it, right? You're not compatible with that realm. Your body has to stay here. Their body is not able to cope with what is to come pertaining to this gigantic light, this shift in consciousness that's coming together. All of the parasites become extinguished. They simply won't be here. And it will look as if people have died, or whatever the transition is that they have left. But you would say that you would see the dirtiness of that soul just vanish, completely gone. And then life will play itself out appropriately. But from the vantage point of that parasitical soul, in the way that we'll refer to it, or parasitic entity, their essence isn't here anymore. They're gone completely, right? And then everything plays itself out accordingly in regards to the continuity of life. That's what's happening, okay? It is a detoxification, yes. It's a complete and total detoxification of everything that's taking place. And she says, after that, your star family will come. Okay, so this is her addition. After that happens, your star family will come. Okay, so this is what's going to lead post 2038 to a time of inauguration. An inauguration where we start to make connections with the star family. Star family cannot appear while these parasites are here. They will manipulate the circumstances. They will turn something good into something horrendous and evil. This is why the star families have had to keep their distance, because they're waiting for the event. Just as many of you are waiting for the event. Okay? So this is why, again, the star families have had to have a hands-off policy with Earth. She says, we can't do anything right now because these parasites are still infecting so many people. We have to basically wait for the event, and then the event basically clears them off the planet. And then when they clear off the planet, we can start making negotiations. We can start making ourselves known. So again, post 2038 would give you the opportunity for extraterrestrial contact. Okay, so that's really where we're going altogether. And I've even asked Athena in the past as well too. Like she said that there is some land that is being conserved as well. She says, but that land won't be available for quite some time, but we are prepping it because there will be welcome humans who will be selected, who have the invitation to go into the inner earth for this land, to which they can also almost like create like a colony there at the same time. But there's no fixed date onto that. She says we just kind of play it by ear and see how humanity is evolving. And the people who will be invited will know. They will receive that transmission. They'll receive that invite, right? And it will be available to people. And I would say, would that be something that would happen post-event? She says, yes, that would be post-event. We can't do it pre-event. There's too many parasites. There's too many parasites on the planet that are, again, taking something good and making it foul. This is what they do. They have infiltrated so many areas of society. They have infiltrated so many institutions that originally started with goodwill, and they will invade it like a parasite into a host. That's what they do. And they can invade bodies. These parasites can invade bodies. They can, again, affect reasoning. They can affect your emotional states. They can affect you psychologically because they are psychic masters. They are masterfully psychic. And they know how to basically go right into a body from one who is vulnerable, right? Not for a person who has themselves together. They can't touch that person. But one who is vulnerable, they would be able to go right into that person and infect them. And they would be able to infect them, and now they have no sense of true reasoning. Their reasoning is now misguided on a parasitical level. They will lie, they will cheat, they will steal, they will fight, they will manipulate, they will murder, right? And that's what you see, especially as you look into a lot of these politicians, right? Even as you look into a lot of the quote-unquote leftists. It's exactly what they are. A lot of them are pretty much all parasitically infected, right? And all they want to do is spread violence, and all they want to do is deny, and all they want to do is blame, and all they want to do is hurt, and all they want to do is ridicule, and all they want to do is fight, right? That's your sign of a parasite infection, right? And I say, well, what are these particular beings? She says, well, they don't really have a true form. They basically would exist in regards to thought forms, right? They could basically manipulate themselves through a thought form. She said you would find them quite commonly as beings that you would know as the jinn, right? Jinn would be very much close to what we're talking about here. They once held property over this world a very long time ago. But again, what they would do is they would be tricksters, and they would try to manipulate humans to opening up more portals so that more of these particular beings from other dimensions would come through. So it's kind of like Jinn plus, right? You have parasitical beings, you would have Aramaic beings, basically Morgothian beings in that particular way, or Baal or Baphomet. consciousness that has been leaked into this dimension that was never supposed to be, right? And so a lot of these particular people would be tricked to perform these ceremonies, often for the nature of trying to experience longevity, right? Where they think they're actually performing something that brings about longevity, and ritual of prosperity actually would represent the nature of great misfortune, where they're actually opening portals all across the planet to invite these particular parasitical beings, be they jinn, be they Morgothians, be they Baphomet consciousness beings, be they archons, etc., right? She says there's many names for them, but that's really what they represent. They represent a plight, right? They are, a blight of the entire planet. So the blight that has been here is a result of humanity being duped, being tricked, especially a lot of emperors and a lot of their alchemists and a lot of their sages and soothsayers have basically performed all kinds of rituals. Even the old Catholic Church, even the old Christians as well too, would start basically building sacrifices, committing sacrifices, and those sacrifices will invite those particular energies in because of their energies of death. Those open up portals. Those particular parasites come into the world and they start infesting, and they start working around people's emotions. She says even when you have your alcohol, which is called spirits, right? This is representing the idea of possession. You're basically in a discombobulated mood, and now you can have these parasites just invade you. And now they can give you all kinds of horrible things. They can say all kinds of horrible things. They are masterfully psychic, right? So everything that's been happening on this plane has been the result of a parasitic infection that has been around for many thousands of years, right? It was colossal in the fall of Atlantis, the Younger Dryas, the flood. Okay, that was a washing away. That was attempting to be a reset. But it was also the idea of a massive takeover that was taking place because Atlanteans were casting spells. Atlanteans were bringing in these parasites by the millions, right? And the entire nature of trying to reset the earth was trying to clear out a lot of these parasites at the same time. But of course, many of them endured. And there were few of them, because a lot of them did get wiped out with it. But there were still a few that endured and were able to cause the chaos with upcoming civilizations post-Atlantis. And they came in and they started to wreak havoc more. So we're kind of giving you the history here of a lot of these parasites. But Atlanteans, specifically, were the ones that brought a lot of these parasites, a lot of these jinn, a lot of these archons, a lot of these parasitical beings into the fabrics of our dimension because they thought they were going to be helped. They wanted everlasting life. They wanted eternity, right? And they were duped. And then again, other civilizations that followed, getting duped again and again and again, and trying to repopulate the entire planet with this infestation of parasites. And that's exactly what's happened here. So this is what Athena is kind of sharing with me, and something that I've known for quite some time as well. But she says this is why, again, your star family has had to keep things at a distance. They're taking care of a lot of things behind the scenes. They're trying to prevent any more of them from coming into the plane here. But right now, there's still a massive infestation, and the infestation is so great that really what is going to resolve all of it is the event. So again, once the event is there, they're gone, right? And she says this is not just happening on our world. There are many other worlds out there that have the same type of parasitical beings that are infesting other worlds, right? So she says there's been a lot of lockdowns, and we've heard from others that they've had to lock down worlds as well too. Earth has been on a lockdown for a very long time, and it needs to be locked down so that this parasitical infection does not spread. It's basically like a capsule, right? So it locks down on the planet, it locks down on the solar system. And again, this is why you can't leave. You cannot really send technology to other things because you're infested. You have to be completely decontaminated. And the best way for that to happen is through the event. The event is basically what's going to prevent these entities. And she says that's what's disappearing. Their realms from this universe are disappearing. They will not be able to move into the flip, into the shift that's taking place. That's the event, right? So there you have it, everybody. That's quite a commentary, right? But this is what I'm getting. So again, we've had some really great discussions here. So I want to thank Athena for sharing this together with me as well too, because a lot of things I'm sharing is coming from her at the same time. She's talking about the history. She's well aware of Atlanteans. She says, my people worked with the Atlanteans. She says, we know about the Atlanteans, right? They would come upon Greece as well too. Greece in that sense was in a very major war with Atlantis going back many thousands of years ago, going back anywhere from 13,000, 14,000, 15,000 years ago. Greece was at war with Atlantis, right? So we had a lot of dealings. We were trying to calm a lot of people during that time because they were just all about fighting and war. Atlantis basically wanted to seize almost every land on the planet to basically claim it as theirs. So again, you had the foul kings, the foul queens, a lot of the royal families of Atlantis, basically we refer to them as the tribes, that really wanted to put flags onto lands and claim them as Atlantean land, right? So again, that's a recollection of what you're going through today, about the idea of the nature of progress and trying to invade other lands and trying to make it your own, right? That's exactly what the Atlanteans did. The Atlanteans did it first, right? And then other civilizations started to copy what they did, right? The Atlanteans were basically the first conquerors on your planet. They were the first. And through that, that's what continued to spread throughout the karmic nature of the planet, where we would see other civilizations coming and going, but they wanted to rule. They wanted to claim lands, right? Because land was what it was all about. And Atlanteans wanted to claim all kinds of lands and claim it their own and just plant a flag there and say, this is now an Atlantean colony, right? And from what Athena is saying, she says a lot of the lands had Atlantean colonies around them, specifically in areas of Africa, specifically around areas of Europe, areas of Asia as well too. She said the western area did not have as much, other than areas maybe like Hawaii, right? Hawaii had a lot of connections with Atlantis as well too. They also had connections with Mu. And so, like I said, it was all part of the very first conquering empire was Atlantis in its later years, not in its early times. Early times, it was very blissful. But this is the nature of the parasites coming in and just starting to infest and causing war within people. It's all part of this manipulation. So in order for that to change, the event needs to take place and their realms cannot be here, because even if we do flush them off the planet, they're still going to find a way in. They still will find a way. They are completely relentless. They see Earth as their property. They will not give up their property. They see the Earth as the host body that they can infest. And it has such valuable, quote-unquote, resources for them that they will give anything to maintain themselves on Earth. So they are relentless, right? And so this is exactly why the event needs to happen. It shifts, and then they can't be here. Their rung of the ladder has been cut off, and they will vanish. So there you go, guys. This is between me and Athena, but this gives you some idea about what's actually happening. This is looking into our history a lot about this. Now, the good news as well, too, is I'm going to be talking to Dr. Michael Sala again here in end of October. I did a interview with him, I believe it was back in June. We had a really great conversation. Michael just contacted me the other day. He says, Brad, I'd like to talk to you some more, because he was tuning into what I was talking about a couple of days ago with the Consortium of Infinite Intelligence, talking about the Earth Intelligence Report, and looking at the situations that are unfolding pertaining to the digital IDs. But my guess is he'll probably watch today's broadcast as well too. So I enjoy Michael's company, so it's going to have some really great conversations for sure. So when that's ready, I'll let everybody know, and you can enjoy that next upcoming interview here at the end of October with Dr. Michael Sala and myself. So it's going to be great. All right, everybody, how about we open up the chat? And like I said, I'm still in connection with Athena. So if you still have some questions with her, you can ask that as well, too. Otherwise, feel free to share any questions that you have. I don't think I have any donation-based questions right now, so we'll just go on to any questions in the chat. So again, if you want to put your question in priority sequence, you can leave it by donation, or if you want to have a personal reading, you can leave that by donation as well, too. Okay. So Robert says, hi, Brad. I've been listening to you for a few months off and on. I must say you speak my language. Also, you surprise me with other knowledge that I would never have come up with. Well, I mean, what can I say? It's just all these things, I don't plan this. Like, I had no idea what I came in with Athena. I'm just happy to talk to her, to see how things are going. And she just throws us these big surprises. So sometimes I can be just as surprised. But thank you for being here. All right, let's go down the list here a bit more. Okay. Another Athena here on the chat here says, who was the first to test the light beam and how safe it was to touch? She said, and I kind of feel like Athena's kind of giggling as well too. She says many of us were touching. She said, actually, if you would define the people who would want to touch it first, it would be our children. Our children would want to touch it first, right? So the children would basically be the ones that would want to look at that. But we know exactly what these are. It's not something that is a mystery to us, from what Athena is saying. She says this is part of the natural cycle of the earth, the natural cycle of growth, the natural cycle of a new shift that is coming. But if you must ask, it would be our children, right? So there you go. Okay, let's go on a little bit further here. So 2038, 13 years. Theo, it happens. I'm not sure who Theo is, but all right. Yes, like I said, this is something that I've been talking about. I think I went back to 2038, like in 2019 or 2020, something around there, where I started talking about 2037, 2038, right? I basically referred to as those 2 years of span, because there's a lot of change that's going to happen in 2037 that will lead into 2038. So I was always calling it between the 2037 and 2038 span. But as I've been looking into it a lot more, 2037 is important because it's a prelude into something big that will happen in 2038. So like I said, I don't have the exact month or date of whenever that happens. And like I said, it's going to be so seamless, a lot of us aren't even going to notice that it happens. Right? So again, as we get closer to that time, we'll just keep investigating it and see exactly what comes up. But I'm just constantly getting 2038, right? So that's the time to where the cycle of time ends. And this is also in accordance together with the Egyptian calendar, with the Egyptian timeline, that when you measure exactly how the pyramids are utilizing the pyramid inch, and you reach right to the end to where the pyramid inch ends of the Egyptian pyramid timeline, it stops in 2038, right? So something big happens. And this is something that goes back thousands of years, right? So you have our ancestors knowing many thousands of years ago that something really big is going to happen in 2038. So there you go. It's going to be interesting. Like I said, the only two people that talk about 2038 are myself and John Van Auken. Okay, so John Van Auken, his name is John Vanauken. Okay, but he doesn't talk about what's happening in 2038. He said just all these things lead up to 2038. And he said, what happens in 2038? He said, I don't know. Something big happens, but we don't know what it is. And I'm the only one basically giving it this kind of elaboration. So the two of us are the only people that I know on the internet that talks about 2038. John Van Auken and myself, right? So there you go. And I didn't even know about him until a subscriber came up to me and said, hey, Brad, you should check out John Van Auken because he's saying similar things to you. So, okay, cool. I think it was the first day I announced about 2037, 2038. And then I had the subscriber email me, and then I got a video, and I was checking out his stuff, and he's very good. He's very, very practical man, right? And he's gone to Egypt many times, and he is, of course, an Edgar Cayce researcher. And he would research these things. And Edgar Cayce would even have sessions talking about how to properly measure the Egyptian timeline at the same time. It says you basically have to go up. You have to go up to the vault. And then you'll see right at the end there that as you calculate it all together, time ends 2038. Right? So basically my suggestion would be that the idea of singularity flips, and the whole nature of time now starts to go into its inversion cycle, which is taking us out of accelerated time and back into renormalized time. But these are just what I'm feeling, guys. I can't prove any of these things because I can't go up into these time dimensions and dissect them and show them to you, right? This is just what I'm feeling through intuition, and like I said, what I've heard from Adronis and what I'm getting now from Athena. This is what's coming through. So, like I said, you can take it or leave it. I'm not saying that this is the gospel or anything of that nature, but this is what I've been getting for years, right? And Athena is even corroborating with it as well too. So, it's wonderful. Yes, so this is a very important thing that the Year of the Fire Horse talks about. It doesn't matter if you're on Earth or in spirit. Adronosus said everyone will know it or feel it. And Athena, would you concur? She's like, yes. Every being in this universe is going to feel the event, right? It's inevitable. It does not matter if you are incarnated. It does not matter if you are discarnated. It does not matter what dimension you are in. All of you are going to feel it, right? You will all experience the event. It's impossible not to experience it. You can't escape it. This is work of God, right? You cannot escape it. So even if you're in the other realms, right, in the astral realms and other particular realms, playing around in there, you're going to feel it too. Okay? Every living being will feel the event. Okay? You can't run from it. You can't escape it. And it's the same thing with these parasites. They can't escape it. They can't run from it. And their rung of the ladder is basically going to be cut off. So this is what we're talking about, is we're seeing their particular rung of the ladder, which represents these parasitical beings, these infestation realms, these dark realms, these hellish realms, are basically going to be cut off from the universal ladder, so to speak, and then a new rung of the ladder is going to be coming up, right? So we're seeing, you could say it's like a type of dimensional shift, but it's not the idea of people thinking that they're just going to burst into light bodies and go off the planet as the New Agers would have you believe, because that's not what's happening, right? So we're seeing compliance coming together here. We're seeing the idea that when you look at third density, when you look at fourth density, if you're putting it in those terms, that they're sharing the same kind of bubble, right? But they still have their own parameters to how they function, which means in order for you to move into a fourth density life, you need to have a fourth density body, but you have a third density body, and you need to play out this life through the third density body, because that's what you have. It's not possible. It's like trying to scoop a goldfish out with a net and then just tossing it on the land and expecting it to breathe. It's not. It's going to die, right? So the same thing goes with this, is that there's a compliance that's coming together. We're able to see that there's a mixing, there's a thinning of veils, so where you're able to see a lot more phenomena that's taking place, particularly people who are expanding themselves and opening up, people who have open hearts will see these phenomena quite a bit. I've talked to thousands of them over the years, and they're all seeing these particular types of phenomena. They can see beings walking through walls. They can see beings walking up to the sky. They can see giant reptilians standing right next to people that are walking together with them, right? That's all part of the parasitical network, so to speak, right? But all of those particular beings are going to be flushed out via the event. And right now they're basically being cut off from the Earth plane as well, too, because there's a lot of work being done to reopen a lot of these grids on the planet that have basically been violated, right? And a lot of these particular grids that have been violated have enabled a lot of these parasitical beings to come through. To what I'm feeling, a lot of them are being sealed right now and being reopened much more into light. So people will basically have the idea of vision quests, and they will go in and they will start going to certain areas, and they will start working with transmutation to help clear out these old gateways that basically have had violence upon them, because that's the only way these beings can come through. There has to be some type of death energy, right? If there's no death energy, they can't touch it, right? If there's any particular type of violence or death or anything of that nature, that would make it compatible for them to open up a particular portal and come through, right? So there's cleaners that are coming in as well too, who can actually, through technology, detect a lot of these things and work with specific forms of frequencies to decontaminate these particular portal systems and clean them out. But we would see a lot of these particular portal systems in forests, national forests, okay? A lot of these national forests have old portal systems that have primarily been corrupted because there's death energy there, right? They would actually have people going out and performing these particular types of demonic seances and basically opening portals in forests, right? Where people start to disappear. That's a sign of a lot of these particular portal systems that have opened, that has been around for a very, very long time, for centuries, right? And people will just start walking and they'll vanish, right? It's not to say that some creatures taken them, but there's some particular portals that are so open and active that you can basically walk through a portal and you may not even come back onto Earth until a few years later. But during that time, everything felt instantaneous, right? So, like I said, my friends, I got a lot of things to share with you, but this is the idea. I think I had a donation here from, from Chris. Okay. Hi, Brad. Do you have any plans to come to the UK at all in the future? I have plans to come to Egypt. So I'm going to Egypt in November. I was in UK just under 2 years ago. Okay, so I did a tour there. Surprised you haven't heard of that. Maybe you weren't here during the time, but I did a UK tour with about I think like 24 other people, and we got to see crop circles and everything. It was the most wonderful experience of my life. Right, I had some experiences too with South Africa. That was incredible, and with the UK. Last year I was in Bosnia. Bosnia was good. I enjoyed the pyramids. It was probably my least favorite trip, though. My most favorite one, I would say, would be a tie between South Africa and UK. And then, of course, in November, I'm going to Egypt, which will probably be the top one, right? So, and again, like I said, we're going to have groups going into the pyramids. Adronis is going to be along for the ride as well, too, and talking about what is really underneath the pyramid and what is the technology that's there. And he's sharing it just for the group. So we'll see if he wants to share anything else in the future, but that group that's with me is going to be the ones that are going to hear from it first, right? So that's going to be interesting. Okay, so thank you for your question. Let me see if there's any other questions here. There's a few. Okay. Yeah, 13 years is nothing. Time is speeding up. It will feel like half the time has passed. It's already feeling like that because, like I said, this was around 2019, 2020 when I started hearing about this, and it's still already going very fast, right? There's a 13-year wait right now, but like I said, it's not really a wait because we're going to see it through transition starting to continue to shift, right? So no, I don't think I have too long to wait. Okay. Okay, so again, I've had this particular question with some people as well too, saying, Brad, do we have to wait till 2038? Is there any way that we can bring it forward now? You don't control the universe. Okay? You do not control the flow of life. That's not how it works. You have to understand that the grand plan, and the best way to put it, is God's plan. You cannot override it. You cannot hurry it up. You cannot delay it. You cannot ignore it. It's what is. The only thing that you can control is yourself. Okay? You cannot control the flow of events on this planet. There's a reason why I tell you guys something that's happening in 2038 about 18 to 19 years before it happens, because you have the next 18 to 19 years at the time that I made that announcement to clean yourself up, to start working with yourself, to start going into prep. Why do you think I share these things with you guys? Because if I shared it last minute, oh, okay, we're in 2037. Hey, guys, next year we're just going through a massive singularity. And in 2038, we're going to shift the whole nature of the universe. And then the gigantic, colossal, universal event will happen. Brad, why didn't you say that years before? That's why I'm giving you guys a 13-year head start. Stop worrying about your age or thinking that, oh, can we hurry this up? You're not ready right now. You have time right now to prep yourself. It's exactly what Athena and I have been talking about today. You need to spend more time in here. You need to spend more time in your heart and cleaning yourself up. Because as you start to do that, as each day progresses, you're going to see more. You're going to feel more. You're going to experience more. That's why I'm giving you guys this 13 to 18 or 19-year head start. Is that you have these years now to start working on yourself. Don't you think maybe it's time to let go of all these things pertaining to mediocrity, of these surface-based understandings of events that don't mean a damn, and actually start going within yourself and cleaning yourself up? Because that's what matters. When you look back and reflect on your life, the last thing you think about is your stupid bank account. The last thing you worry about is your job, is what you do on the surface. No, it is how you touched others in life. It is how you worked with yourself in life, because that's what comes through your life review. Not about what you have in the bank, not about the type of car that you have, not whether you're being too finicky, if your house should be blue or beige or yellow, right? Not about how this person has hurt you, but about how you have touched lives. Do you see others as you see yourself? Do you feel the interconnectedness between yourself and all the forms of life? Because that's what you look for when you kick the bucket. And seeing, have I felt interconnection? Have I felt someone as myself? Have I felt myself as another? That's what we look for. That's what we see. And worrying so much about your bank account and about finances and trying to say, oh, this event better hurry up because all you're looking for is a bailout. You do not understand its essence. And that is detrimental. This is not a bailout, my friends. This is not for the idea of the sake of your relief. Because like I said, if you do not see this for what this truly is, you're going to spend more and more lifetimes trying to figure out what this is, falling around in a loop. This is not what this is about. This is not a cosmic bailout. This is shifting because this is all part of a natural process, a natural cycle of life that is unfolding. That we're letting go of that because there's a greater purpose to this greater shift. Rather than the idea of watching an old corrupt rung fall off a ladder, we're seeing something new coming into this ladder. This is a greater birth of expansion. To where again there is a purification that takes place and the universe is being reborn like an infant, right? And we're seeing a whole new change coming together. To my knowledge, this has never happened before. This is the first of its kind. It's representing the idea of a transition of a universe, actually shifting into a whole new universe. It's quite beautiful. But this is not a bailout. This is not to solve your problems, right? You still have your challenges in life post-2038. You still have to learn how to work with your heart because there still are going to be challenges around you, okay? It's not angels with harps singing down at the clouds and giving you all this, right? Things will start to become a lot more easier because corruption won't be on the planet. But you still have to go through your challenges because you still have scars and you still have to heal that up. But the world is certainly going to move into a much better place. But you still have challenges, right? So this is why I've given you guys all of this knowledge years before it happens to work with yourselves. How many of you are working with yourselves right now, right? I know I can't see hands, but there you go. That's something I would like to hear. How many of you are working on yourselves? How many of you are going into your heart and starting to clear out a lot of your traumas? This, again, is why I offer the service of the Personal Transcendence Package. I'm here to help you. Be that spiritual liaison that's helping you a lot, but I'm only working with the energetic side of you. You have to work with the mineral side of you, right? So this is the whole case. It's not about trying to speed something up and blah, 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 because that's the wrong idea. That's the wrong mentality to have, right? This is all about the idea of birthing. That's like having a woman who is pregnant. Now she's 2 months pregnant. Can you just speed it up and just give birth to this kid already? I'm just 2 months pregnant. You want me to fast forward the remote to get me right to 9 months? Well, tough luck. I don't have that. Because that's basically what you're saying to life. Can we just speed this up? I'm pregnant. I'm just starting to be pregnant right now, and you want me to suddenly hit the remote control and fast forward another 7 months so that you can see me give birth to this kid? Yeah. Give me a break. Okay. That's what you're doing. You're trying to go against these cycles. And it's not just a couple people here. I've had this for years from people. Brad, I'm 65 years old. Brad, I'm 80 years old. Brad, I'm 90 years old. Guys, it's like I said. It does not matter if you are in a body or not. You will experience the event. It does not matter where you are. It does not matter what you are. It does not matter your lightness of being or your heaviness of being. Everybody will experience the event, period. Every living being. Adronis has said this with great directness as well too. Right? Even Athena, from what I'm communicating with, she is also saying that everybody will experience the event. It does not matter if you are incarnated. If you are leaving your body before that time, doesn't matter. You're still going to experience it. Okay? Does not matter where you are. So again, there's this bargaining that tries to go on with people, trying to impose something through an argument's sake based on something that no one can control or change. And you're wasting your breath and you're wasting your time with such foolishness. These are the cycles of life. You cannot snap your fingers when it's summertime and all of a sudden make it winter. You cannot snap your fingers with a woman that is 2 months pregnant and all of a sudden move them up into 9 months. Right? You cannot shift that. You cannot snap your fingers with a 10-year-old kid, making them into a 50-year-old. So I don't even know why we even have to have these conversations, because they're ridiculous. It's the natural cycles of life beyond your control. And I bring it to you so that you can prep yourself. But your preparation is up to you. All right? I hope that makes sense, because again, I get so many of those questions over the years. And no offense, but they're quite ridiculous. Because like I said, you're just trying to mess with the natural cycles of life. And when you do that, like, you really have to look at yourself in the mirror and saying, why am I doing that? Because I'm so completely out of touch with who I am right now. I just want to be a future self that I can't even associate with right now, because I just want to bail out. I just want hope. And this is why hope is dangerous. This is why hope is a distraction. This is why hope is a waste of time. It's not about hope. It's about working with your potential to see what you can become. Rather than giving yourself hope, give yourself presence. That's much better than hope. All right? Okay, let's move on. Let's see how we're on time here. We got a few minutes left. Let's see. Okay. So this one here is from Marilena. Does that mean that as we embody more of love and higher frequency, that we are less affected by the negative energy that they are leaving? Well, it's not so much about positive and negative energy, right? Because that's still looking at absolution. You're still looking at the black and the white, right? Let me see if I can get Athena in here, and she can talk a little bit more about what you're saying here, right? If you're embodying more love and higher frequency, that are less affected. She said, what the nature of higher frequency, as you term it, represents is the ability for you to see reason greater. Okay, those are Athena's words. What you know as higher frequency is the natural ability for you to see reason greater. That's all this is. Right now, when you are in, as you would say, a lower vibration, a lower frequency, reasoning becomes less. You're dense. And as there's that density, you are susceptible by people's surface-based thoughts and feelings. You are more susceptible to the surface plane because your own sense of reasoning is more flatter. And that's the lower density. When you start to expand yourself and see that very love and higher frequency that you talk about, you are able to see a greater fundamental relating to reasoning. Higher frequency means higher reasoning. This is happening inside the mind. The brain is being the conduit for that. But as you start to elevate yourself to a higher frequency, and to simply refer to it as a higher frequency, is that you're clearing out the distorted frequency to where only the pure frequency is being felt. And with that pure frequency being felt, you now become more susceptible to natural reasoning. And to the nature of natural reasoning, your realizations through reasoning become more apparent. Right? So this is really the science behind it all, is that higher frequency simply represents purity. It represents the lessening of the distortion of frequency that is false, so that you can hear much more of the natural frequency that is the truth. And this affects your reasoning. This advances reasoning. This is why, for example, when you talk to someone who's just pure angry, you cannot get any words in. This person is just completely outraged, which means they're emotionally sick. They're emotionally ill. The Bible once referred to such people as sinners, right? And all really the nature of a sin is just one who is being led by their emotions. Their emotions are controlling them. They've sinned, right? Because sin basically represents an ancient Egyptian moon goddess. And what's the moon represent? Emotions, right? So when you've sinned, that was her name, right? The goddess Sin. You've sinned. You've basically got into your emotions. Your emotions are carrying you into another realm where you're not able to see reason. Emotions are what keep you bottled up in lower frequencies, because emotions are emergency defense systems through your own subtle bodies. They are there to basically lock you down, to help you see what's going on. But what happens is that we get so carried away by the emotions, we don't realize their true nature. Emotions are not a bad thing, but what happens is we get encapsulated by them. We get encapsulated by them, and now they start to take us over, and now we basically go into this temporary level of insanity. So again, just as you cannot get a word in with a person who is outraged, with a person who is angry, they've already made up their minds because their emotions dominate them. With all due respect, that is a very, very ill and very weak person, right? They don't know how to work with their emotions. They don't know how to harmonize them. And this is exactly what Jesus would say is, take no thought. He doesn't say, calm down. He doesn't say, oh, don't worry about it. He says, take no thought, right? So what you're learning to do? To be the witness, to be the observer, because the witness, the observer, does not think. They simply observe. They simply witness. And then as you learn to witness, all of that barometer of intensity pertaining to the emotion dies down. And now all that remains is the quiet. And now you're in that state of subtlety. You've expanded yourself, and you're now much more in the good graces of reasoning, right? So higher frequency represents your ability to move into greater reasoning. So take that for what it's worth. And that comes from Athena. Okay? Thank you very much. All right. How are we doing on time here? We're almost out of time, so a few more minutes left. Okay. Yeah, Athena says the jinn, I know one of them, sometimes they get zapped. I've actually had to try and take jinn out of people. Okay, so there's times where jinn comes in. Basically, it's very difficult to negotiate with them, right? I have tried to do that in the past. Now I basically utilize a different routine. I basically bring in sentinel consciousness. And as you bring in sentinel consciousness, that sentinel consciousness basically grabs the jinn by the throat and saying, either you leave this body right now or I will destroy you. So basically that's how the sentinels work, right? The sentinels are kind of like the guardians of cosmic law. They're kind of like the military of cosmic law itself. They actually reside above the angelic planes, above the angels, above the archangels, above the seraphim. And then you have the cosmic law plane to which the sentinels themselves derive. And I've made contact with those particular realms. It's the idea that when you look at the seraphim abide by that law. But when you look at the nature of the sentinels, they are that law, right? So that's the whole idea. They are the embodiment of the cosmic law. And they are the ones that can actually make the decisions pertaining to the nature of your karma, right? So you bring in a sentinel to deal with a jinn, they'll basically just grab that jinn by the throat and yank them right out of the person's body and say, you either leave now or you die. That's what they do. And not only will you die, I will go and I'll wipe out every single one of your legions, and then I'll go into your realm and I'll go ahead and I'll destroy that too. That's what the sentinels do. So they give them the threat of threats. It's not even really a threat because they'll do it, right? A sentinel will basically go in and wipe out a particular parasite and then wipe out all of their legions and then go into their realms and start wiping that out as well too. That's what they call it. That's kind of like a Kali energy right there. But it's like a Kali to the max because they're wiping out everything pertaining to that being. And so you either leave now or you're all going to be destroyed. So, and I've worked with the sentinels on multiple occasions like that. When there's people who have had these particular types of jinn attachments in that way, and it's not a lot of people, so don't worry, right? It's few and far between. But when that does happen, I bring in the sentinels, and it's kind of like annihilation time. Either you leave right now, and they basically just leave. They run, and they don't come back, right? Because I can basically just keep the sentinel there. And if they even peek, they even show a morsel of themselves, the sentinel will wipe them out, okay? So that's the sentinel. The sentinel is extremely powerful. They're even more stern than the seraphim. And the seraphim are pretty strict. But the sentinels, they can be ruthless because they, again, they are the embodiment of cosmic law, right? They are the very essence of karma. So they exist above the angelic planes. So there you go. If you guys want to know more about sentinels, you can let me know. But that's what I refer to them as. I don't know a lot of their quote-unquote holy names in that way, but I have referred to them as sentinel consciousness. Okay, let's see. Okay, this one here is from Rose. Rose says, where do the parasites come from? Who sent them? Well, humanity has brought them on the planet, right? That's the whole idea, is that a lot of these ancient emperors and ancient rulers would be duped, and they would actually have liaisons, and some of these liaisons could be extraterrestrial, they could be extra-dimensional ambassadors. Somehow they find themselves upon the earth plane. It's kind of like what we learned about a lot in the Bible, about how the angels started to take a liking to the women of the earth and therefore engrace themselves upon them. Well, that would be the idea, is that, again, a lot of these particular beings that were never meant to operate in that way came on the plane and basically would offer fortune and longevity to people only to be duped because they themselves would have these possessive qualities, right? And then they would start getting into sex and all that. So, like I said, that is actually a very, very true story. That is exactly how it began. So Enoch was quite correct with that. But again, we kind of use it in the state of allegory. It's not so much of what he describes word for word, but what he describes in regards to its premise is very correct. You basically had initiate beings who did not quite gain their own states of mastery, still succumb to the natures of pleasure, and they would interact with the rulers of men. And they would give them these particular gifts, right? And this would lead to, again, a lot of these rulers creating war because these people would basically talk sweet nothings in their ear, thinking that they are superior and that they're the better ruler and that they need to engage conquest. So they basically become the poisonous voice. And then they would start giving them alchemical teachings. It's kind of like going back into ancient Greek philosophy, or rather the Greek gods, where you had, again, Prometheus giving fire to man. But the nature of that fire would represent how to build weapons, how to go to war, right? How to take over your enemies, how to work with alchemy, teaching a lot of man these things pertaining to fire that can represent aggression and sinister nature. That's true as well, right? The premise of it is true. So again, you're looking at these quote-unquote gods that come down from the heavens and coming upon the earth and talking to these rulers, whispering sweet nothings in their ear. You're the best, you're amazing, you know you're the most powerful ruler here. You know you could go ahead and take out that kingdom as well too, because they're nothing compared to you. And now they start doing these rituals, and now through the rituals, and now through the death energy, and now through the bloodshed that has come together, let's open some portals. And then the portals start coming in, and then the parasites start coming in. A lot of these ancient rulers, and again, all of their clerics, the ones that have been trained in the natures of ancient alchemy, can easily do that, right? It's not difficult to do that, other than, you know, the ability for one to murder others. But again, what they do is they attack at certain times. They attack in certain phases that come together. This is all astrologically and numerologically backed, because the Bible is a numerology book. All ancient texts function through numerology, because numerology is the true science. It's the science of sciences. And so you do that in certain days, in that sense, to where you do it through a certain area of the land, you do it through a certain phase, you do it through a certain time, you investigate certain people in that sense that also have certain degrees of karma, and then you basically take them out one by one in regards to how they die, and then you start casting these particular spells, and then you start opening these dark energies and these dark portals, because there's death energy everywhere and there's bloodshed everywhere. And so now you got all these gateways opening up, and now you got these demonics coming in and starting to possess people, and they will temporarily forge an alliance with the ruler that they promised would own the land. And then eventually at that particular point, that ruler would be betrayed. They would go into states of misfortune. They would pass their their lineage and their rule upon their children, and their children would do the same thing. They would be talked poison in their ear, and they would now start to go ahead and dominate other territories, and then they would start to work with alchemical practices, carving crests of blood together, bloodshed, death energy into these areas at appropriate times, numerologically speaking, astrologically speaking, opening up these portals, bringing in more parasites, and starting to infest more people. And this is, again, where it represents the true nature of the plague. The plague was the demonics coming upon this planet. That's the true plague. Not so much of a virus, but the plague of evil. So, my friends, this is what you can discover when you have an open heart. When you open up your frequency and you move into reasoning, you start to see these things. So that is it. Like I said, it's like Athena and I talked about earlier. This is the whole nature of how this all started. Again, beings that were not supposed to flaunt such power, that again saw themselves as masters when they were initiates, who were still very susceptible to the temptations and carnalities of mankind. Came here, messed everything up. It's basically how it happened. Humanity started off with innocence, and then it became tainted, right? And it could be a bigger agenda and a bigger agenda and a bigger agenda, because like I said, when you look at the nature of the Bible, even the angels of heaven bowed down to man because of the power that man holds. Like I said, you can't just come down here and start ruling kingdoms. It doesn't work that way. The idea of interventional law would kick you off this planet before that, but it's okay to negotiate. It's okay to talk, right? And that's exactly what they did. They would negotiate. They would not be the ones that would seize the kingdoms and then run it for themselves. They couldn't do that. They'd be kicked off this planet in a heartbeat. But what they can do is they can talk. They can manipulate. They can negotiate. And that was their weapon. Their sword was their voice. And that's what caused all of these particular forms of portals to open by brutal massacres of war that have happened many thousands of years ago. Like I said, starting off with Atlantis, and then other civilizations doing the exact same thing, repeating history again and again and again. So there you go. All right, everybody, we are out of time for today. So again, I hope you enjoyed everything that was shared here today between Athena and myself. So I want to thank Athena. Thank you so much. My heart to yours. Infinite love and blessings. And thank you for your presence. Blessings. And thank you, everybody, for your presence as well, too. So again, I'll be back on Wednesday for the next Earth Intelligence Report as well, too. And like I said, feel free to check out Indiegogo. We're pretty much done with the campaign here. We're almost there. But again, we still have some time for those of you that want to invest into the lifetime subscriptions that will be available. You can find that out on the Indiegogo campaign. That is in the video description. And of course, I'm also doing the personal transcendence package. Already have quite a lot of people, but still open to a lot more. So feel free to check that out on wisdomtransmissions.com. Take care, everybody. See you next week. Namaskar, and may it be well with you. Bye for now.